Thank you, Chairman Lucas. Thank you for holding this important hearing, and it's been very informative. Generalized large language models are incredibly expensive to create and to operate. There was an article earlier this month in the Washington Post. The title of it was, AI chatbots lose money every time you use them. And it goes on to say the cost of operating the systems is so high that companies aren't deploying their best versions to the public. Estimates are that OpenAI lost over $500 million last year. So my first question is to Dr. Farshi. Do you think OpenAI can be profitable?
So I am not close to OpenAI, so I don't know what their commercialization plans are. To the comments that were made earlier regarding the productivity of AI, I believe AI can eventually become productive and enhance human output and create a net positive economic impact on society. But then as it relates to OpenAI,
I'm not asking that.
I don't have an answer for you, unfortunately.
Do any of these large language models, could they actually commercially be profitable given how much it costs to develop them and how much it costs to operate them on a daily basis?
So I think it's important to realize that large language models are just like a small portion of what AI is. What we're seeing as in terms of like usage from companies is more the use of smaller, more specialized, customized models that are both kind of like cheaper to use and more environmentally friendly. And that's what I see the future of AI is, more than one large language model to rule them all. An example of that is when you build a customer chatbot for a bank, you don't need a model to tell you about the meaning of life. So you can use a smaller, more specialized model that is going to be able to answer your question.
Thank you. So my next question is for you. I'm a recovering computer science major. I, on balance, generally support open source. Some of your testimony was about having America continue to be a leader in this area. I'm just curious how America is a leader if it's all open source or our peer competitors simply copy it.
So you look at the past, I think the reason why America is the leader today is because of open science and open source. Yeah. If there wasn't open science and open source, the US probably wouldn't be the leader. Yeah. And I think actually in the past few years, the fact that it got less open is leading to the leadership of the US diminishing.
But we don't quite have open science, right? We have an entire patent system where you can't copy that science.
I would argue that most of today's progress is powered by the open research papers that have been published in the past that I mentioned, like the Attention is All You Need paper. And actually most of the commercial companies today exploiting AI are actually based on these papers, right? The ChatGPT, right. The T is transformers. It's the famous open.
No, I got that. I'm fine with research and development and so on being open. So I'll just give you a story. Last year, I talked to a CEO in my district who's creating a new chip that's faster. He's an immigrant. And at some point I said, how fast is this chip? And he says, 50,000 times faster. I was like, whoa. And it occurred to me that he never would have gone to Moscow, right? No one wakes up and says, I want to go to Moscow. No one really wakes up and says, I want to go to Beijing, where if you say something bad about President Xi Jinping or you get too powerful, they kidnap you and re-educate you. But they come to the United States, not just because we have talent and resources, because we have a whole vast set of intellectual property laws that we enforce, and we have the rule of law, and we don't let people copy this. So I'm just still interested in how you can have America be the leader and then have, I mean, we just sort of say to all these AI companies, just make everything open source. I don't even know how they monetize that. And if people can just copy it, it is sort of interesting to me. So would like to hear more about that later. I do want to move to another topic. And this is to Jason. You mentioned in one of your recommendations, additional funding for NIST to make sure they have the capacity to do their AI risk framework. So I assume you think it is a good framework. I think it's a good framework. I looked through it and thought about it quite a bit. It's pretty generalized, so it's not that prescriptive, so any company could actually adopt it. What is your view of just forcing companies to think about AI by, let's say, anytime the federal government contracts with someone, we require them to go through the NIST AI framework?
Thank you. I do think that we need an approach in which the safety and reliability of systems is assessed before they're broadly deployed. And right now we don't have such a system. And there are a few ways for the federal government to help. One is not only requiring that for direct federal contractors, but also making it a term and condition that any compute provider that has a federal contract would be required to place those conditions on any company that's using its computing infrastructure. So sort of similar to the common rule in which a federal contract with a research organization requires then that any organization that they're working with, even if it's not on a federal contract, follows the common rule, say, for human subjects research. We could require the same for safety testing for AI.
Thank you. I yield back.